For the benefit of those who do not understand my native language, our khutbah for today is the role of Muslims in society. My brothers and sisters, again, it is very important for us to know that as Muslims, we have a very vital role to play in the society. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has enjoined upon we the Muslims that we should be people who will call others onto the right path, who will show them, who will encourage, who will command them to do what is good and forbid what is evil. And that is what Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala told us in Surah Al-Baqarah, chapter 2, verse 143. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala said, وَكَذَلِكَ جَعَلْنَاكُمْ أُمَّةً وَسَطًا لِتَكُونُوا شُهَدَاءَ عَلَى النَّاسِ وَيَكُونَ الرَّسُولُ عَلَيْكُمْ شَهِيدًا. In this noble verse of the Quran, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is saying that وَكَذَلِكَ جَعَلْنَاكُمْ أُمَّةً وَسَطًا. He said, and thus we have made you a what? A just community. لِتَكُونُوا شُهَدَاءَ عَلَى النَّاسِ. And that what? That community is what? That your responsibility is what? Is to be a witness over the people. وَيَكُونَ الرَّسُولُ عَلَيْكُمْ شَهِيدًا. And while the messenger will be a witness over you. In this verse, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is describing the Muslim community as ummatan wasatan. That's a middle nation, a nation that is what? That is just, that is on the path of truth, that is not biased, that is not one-sided. That is what Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is describing with the Muslims. And this is what is expected of us as Muslims. We should be people who will what? Who will promote justice in our society. People who will side with the oppressed and not with the oppressors. People who will what? Who will promote peace in our society. A Muslim must be somebody that Islam will be seen in his character. He doesn't need to tell people that I am a Muslim before they see the traits of a Muslim in him. He must make sure that his character is that of a Muslim, that people can easily identify him as a Muslim. My brothers and sisters, indeed, it is important for us. As Muslims, we are meant to promote what is right and discourage what is wrong. As Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala told us in Surah Al-Imam, chapter 3, verse 110, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala said, كُنْتُمْ خَيْرَ أُمَّةٍ أُخْرِجَتْ لِلنَّاسِ تأمرون بالمعروف وتنهون عن المنكر وتؤمنون. In this noble verse of the Quran, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala said, كُنْتُمْ خَيْرَ أُمَّةٍ أُخْرِجَتْ لِلنَّاسِ. He said, you are the best of community that ever raised for humanity. Meaning we are the best community. We the ummah of the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. We are the best of people. We are the best of community that has ever been created, that has ever been raised from among humans. Allah said, تَأْمُرُونَ بِالْمَعْرُوفِ. Why did He praise us? He said, تَأْمُرُونَ بِالْمَعْرُوفِ. We encourage, we command what is good. وَتَنْهَوْنَ عَنِ الْمُنْكَرِ. And we discourage people from what is bad. And He said, وَتُؤْمِنُونَ. And we believe. So meaning Allah has described us as people who are what? Who are the best ummah. And that means we must make sure that we meet that. What are the criteria? The criteria is that we call people on to what is good and discourage them from what is bad. And we believe. And we must well be believers. So meaning, if you call yourself a Muslim, you must believe in Allah. You must be someone who calls people on to what is good and who discourages people from what is bad. That is what makes you a believer. And that is what makes you a good Muslim. And those are some of your roles as a Muslim in the society, which you must play. Because Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will ask you. Everything you do is being recorded by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And that is why on the day of resurrection, some people, when they receive their book, they will say, مَا لِهَذَا الْكِتَابِ. What kind of book is this? لَا يُغَادِرُ صَغِيرَةً وَلَا كَبِيرَةً إِلَّا أَحْصَاهَا. It does not leave anything, whether minute, whether big, except that it puts it into account. So as a believer, as a Muslim, you must make sure that every aspect of your life, you are playing a positive role in your society. Make sure that you behave as a Muslim, make sure that you do things as a Muslim. So that when people will point to you, they will say, he's a Muslim, and that is why he's like that. When people want to do something, when they want to patronize a business, they should say, we want to patronize the Muslims, because they do what is right. People should not say, the Muslims, they are notorious. No. People should always have a good thing to say about you because you are a Muslim. And why are you a Muslim? And why are they saying good things? Because Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has commanded you to do what is right. My brothers and sisters, let us know that the role we play in our society will also will either have a positive or negative effect on our spiritual lives. If you play a positive role in your society as a Muslim, it will have a positive effect on your spiritual life. And in the sight of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, you will be regarded as one of the righteous. But if you play a negative role in the society, where you are someone who promotes what is evil and promotes violence, who is somebody who is not in support of peace, then in the sight of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, you will be regarded as one of those who are what? Who are unrighteous, who are rebellious. My brothers and sisters, indeed, let us try as much as possible that we are people who uphold what is right. As Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala also commanded us in Surah Al-Ma'idah, chapter 5, verse 1, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala said, Ya ayyuhalladhina amanu awfu bil-uqud. In this noble verse of the Quran, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala said, Ya ayyuhalladhina amanu. He said, O you who believe, awfu bil-uqud. He said, fulfill all contracts. As a Muslim, there must be a distinction between you and somebody who is not a Muslim. There must be something that separates you from those who are not Muslim. When you work, when you go into contract, make sure you fulfill the contract. That's what is expected of you as a Muslim. When you're employed when you're employed as an employee, you must make sure that you do what is expected of you. You must make sure that you fulfill your contract you fulfill your contract as expected of you. You shouldn't be somebody who will be cutting corners. As a Muslim, it is not expected of you to cut corners. So whatever it is, make sure that you fulfill contracts, just as Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has instructed us to do. My brothers and sisters, indeed, let us also understand that we must cooperate with each other when it comes to good things. We must support each other when it comes to good things. What did Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala tell us in Surah Al-Ma'idah chapter 5 verse 2? Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala said, وَتَعَاوَنُوا عَلَى الْبِرِّ وَالتَّقْوَى وَلَا تَعَاوَنُوا عَلَى الْإِثْمِ وَالْعُدْوَانِ وَاتَّقُوا اللَّهَ إِنَّ اللَّهَ شَدِيدُ الْعِقَابِ. In this noble verse of the Quran, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala said, وَتَعَاوَنُوا عَلَى الْبِرِّ وَالتَّقْوَى. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala cooperate with one another, support one another in what? In goodness and righteousness. Then he said, وَلَا تَعَاوَنُوا عَلَى الْإِثْمِ وَالْعُدْوَانِ. And do not cooperate in sin and transgression. You see some Muslims cooperating to defraud a company. You see some Muslims working in a company, you are expecting them to behave like Muslims, but you see some of their characters. When they talk of people who are destroying the company, you see a Muslim on that list. A Muslim should not be doing that. A Muslim should be somebody that you set a good example at all times in whatever you do. And that's how you must connect every aspect of your life to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And that is why even in fiqh is divided into two parts. We have what? Fiqh al-ibadat and fiqh al-mu'amalat. So if you focus only on the ibadat, which is the worship, and you do not pay attention to mu'amalat, then you will have problem with your ibadat. Because when you do not do well with your mu'amalat, the sin you accumulate in your mu'amalat will spoil your ibadat for you. So you must make sure that you, as you are making effort to fulfill your ibadat, your worship, that is praying your 5 daily prayers, or fasting in the month of Ramadan, performing Hajj, giving zakah, as you are making effort to fulfill that, make sure that you are making effort to also fulfill your dealings with people. Make effort that you fulfill your contract. Make effort that you do well to people. Make sure that you are kind to people. Because all that will have an effect on your worship. And that is why the Prophet ﷺ said, told the Sahabas, he asked them one day, do you know who is the bankrupt? Atajuruna al-muflis. He said, the one who doesn't have a dinar, who doesn't have money, who doesn't have anything. And he told them, no, that the bankrupt is one that comes on the day of judgment. He has his prayer intact. He prayed. He did all forms of worship. He worshipped Allah as expected, but he was not good to people. He oppressed this. He beat this one. He took what belongs to this one. He consumed this one's money, and so on. They said, then by the time they now prepare all those people with what? With his reward that he got from what? From his worship. It will be used in paying people back for his what? For his bad conduct towards them. And that is why it is important. As you are focusing on your ibadat, on your worship, you also focus on what? On your mu'amalat, on your dealings with people. Because Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will also use that to judge you. My brothers and sisters, indeed, let us fear Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and make sure that we are good ambassadors of Islam anytime, anywhere we find ourselves. My brothers and sisters, indeed, the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam told us in a hadith that what? That he said, أَحَبُّ النَّاسِ إِلَى اللَّهِ أَنْفَعُهُمْ لِلنَّاسِ. He said the best or the most beloved of the people to Allah are those who are useful to the people. So as a Muslim, make sure that you are useful to people positively. Make sure you are a positive influence and not a negative influence in your society. It is very, very important. Because if you are a negative influence, people will begin to point to your negativity. They will begin to point hands towards Islam. Because they will say they are Muslims and that is how they behave. But when you behave positively, when you are a positive influence in your society, people will begin to understand that that is how Muslims behave. They will begin to say Muslims are kind, Muslims they do good and they do all sorts of good things. My brothers and sisters, indeed, let us also know that it is very important that we make effort to guide people onto the path of Islam. With wisdom, as Allah has instructed us. He said, "Ud'u ila sabili rabbika bil hikmati wal maw'izati al hasana." That is what Allah did not say you should force anybody into Islam. He said you should use your wisdom. How do you use your wisdom? Either with your words or your actions. In most cases, your actions will bring people towards Islam. And those are some of the responsibilities you have in your society. There are some of the roles expected of you to play in your society. To bring people into Islam. To make efforts to bring them to Islam in a peaceful manner and with wisdom. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala guide us. And some of us, we live a kind of life. We do not really care. In our society, in our immediate environment, we have no influence at all. People do not even know us as anything good. All they think of us is evil. Do not be that kind of person. You should be somebody who will care about your neighbor. As your neighbor eating, the Prophet ﷺ told us in a hadith, he said, Laysa al-mu'min. Who? He said he is not a believer. Who is that person? He said, Alladhi yashba'u wa jaruhu ja'irun. He said the one that what? The one that his stomach is filled up, that has eaten, that his stomach is filled up, and what? Wajaruhu ja'irun. He said, and his neighbor is what? Is hungry. So my brothers and sisters, how many times have you checked on your neighbor? Your neighbor that has lost his job for over 6 months and doesn't have any way to survive. Have you checked on him? How is he surviving? Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala guide us. Allah make us good ambassadors of Islam. Allah make us good Muslims. People will be Muslims sincerely and not Muslims by mouth. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala continue to guide us. Ibad Allah, inna Allah ya'mur bil 'adli wal ihsan wa ita'i dhil qurba wa yanha 'anil fahsha'i wal munkar wal baghi ya'idukum la'allakum tadhakkarun. Fadhkuru Allah al-'azim al-jalil yadhkurkum washkuru 'ala ala'ihi wa 'ni'amihi yazidkum wa la dhikrullahi akbar wallahu ya'lamu ma tasna'un. Qumu ila as-salati yarhamukumullah.